In just one afternoon, everything familiar was swept away without a trace. On May 10th, 2024, heavy rain suddenly blanketed northern Afghanistan. In the provinces of Baghlan, Takhar, and Badakhshan, rain poured for hours, yet no early warning systems were activated. What began as scattered showers quickly escalated into a torrential downpour, accompanied by strong winds and lightning. Flash floods followed almost immediately, racing down mountain slopes and engulfing everything in their path. In Baghlan, the hardest hit area, residents recalled how the water began rising within minutes. There was no time to gather belongings or evacuate. Mud, boulders, logs, and debris rushed into homes. Familiar items the car parked outside, the small garden out back, were swept away without mercy in chilling silence. Amid the chaos, many people climbed onto their rooftops, clinging to their children, calling out to one another in the dark, unsure if escape was even possible. In many residential areas of Baghlan province, raging floodwaters surged in from all directions, sweeping away vehicles, household belongings, and even crumbling old walls. Locals said that within minutes of turning their backs, the car parked outside had vanished. What had once been a lifetime of savings now lay buried under mud or drifting in the murky current. Homes made of mud bricks couldn't withstand the force of the water. They collapsed in chunks. Scenes of shattered walls and roofs floating down the floodwaters were everywhere. Some families were torn apart as the current carried away loved ones who had been only a few feet apart. In the panic, there was no time to hold on to one another. The only instinct was to reach for the highest ground. When the flood passed, it left behind an emptiness that words couldn't describe. Houses that once glowed with light at night were now nothing but muddy ground. And the silence that followed felt even heavier than the screams during the rising waters. The devastation extended far beyond homes and vehicles. The entire infrastructure of the region suffered severe destruction. In many areas, roads were completely washed away. Routes that once connected neighborhoods had turned into stretches of mud, landslides, and deep cracks stretching for tens of meters. Accessing the disaster zones became extremely difficult, especially for rescue teams and vehicles carrying aid. Suspension bridges, drainage systems, and electrical networks were all damaged. Several power substations were submerged, plunging entire communities into darkness. Clean water systems were either destroyed or contaminated, forcing residents to rely on makeshift sources, raising serious concerns about the risk of disease outbreaks. In hospitals and rural clinics, shortages of medicine and staff made caring for the injured more difficult than ever. Along riversides, fields that had just been planted were now completely underwater. For the local population, it wasn't just a lost harvest, it was the loss of hope for the months to come. As the floods worsened, thousands of residents in Baghlan and Takhar provinces were forced to evacuate urgently during the night of May 10th and early morning of May 11th. entire neighborhoods became completely cut off by rising waters, making evacuation efforts extremely challenging. In many cases, people fled with nothing but the clothes on their backs, leaving all their belongings behind. At the scene, roads leading out of the flood zones had turned into rivers of mud, causing widespread traffic paralysis. Rescue efforts had to rely on motorboats, ropes, and local volunteers to transport residents to safety. However, due to a lack of specialized equipment and trained personnel, many areas remained inaccessible. Emergency shelters were quickly set up, but living conditions were extremely poor. Many evacuees lacked warm blankets, food, clean water, and medical care. Meanwhile, rescue teams continued surveying high-risk areas and appealed for urgent support from the international community. In response to the devastating impact of the flash floods, numerous international organizations have issued urgent appeals for humanitarian aid to northern Afghanistan. Among them are the International Rescue Committee, the World Health Organization, and various UN agencies, which are coordinating relief efforts to provide food, clean water, medical supplies, and temporary shelters for affected communities. However, the relief operations face major obstacles due to destroyed transportation infrastructure, rugged terrain, and worsening weather conditions. Many areas remain completely isolated, forcing aid delivery to rely on helicopters and specialized vehicles. Local rescue teams continue working around the clock to locate the missing. Local authorities have called for additional support from the international community to prevent a growing public health and humanitarian crisis. Supply warehouses in the region have already been depleted after just a few days of emergency response, making the need for resources, equipment, and personnel more urgent than ever. The disaster in northern Afghanistan has laid bare the gaps in early warning systems and the limited capacity to respond to natural disasters in vulnerable regions. Hundreds of lives were lost in a short time due to a lack of preparedness, insufficient equipment, and the absence of timely information. Experts are calling for urgent investment in early warning networks, community training, and infrastructure upgrades in high-risk areas. In an era of increasingly extreme weather caused by climate change, being prepared is no longer optional. It is essential to minimizing future loss and suffering. What happened in northern Afghanistan was not just a local tragedy, it was a stark reminder of humanity's fragility in the face of nature. When warnings come too late, when infrastructure is not resilient, and when communities are unprepared, the consequences are always too great. It is our hope that after witnessing such devastation, every nation and every community will take more proactive steps in disaster preparedness and prevention. For those watching, always stay alert to unusual weather patterns and rely on trusted sources for information.